TruthSeekah and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark Savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, TruthSeekah. This is the TruthSeekah podcast. Listen, we're going to get it in. We're going to talk about all things spiritual. It's going to be really good. We're going to be covering astrotheology, which is a beautiful subject. Make sure you buckle up. We're going to go deep. It's going to be really good. I want to say a shout out to everybody who is listening live with us on all of the video streaming apps, everybody on social media, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, no matter where you're listening, D-Live. Give us a shout out. Let us know where you're listening from. And I want to say a huge shout out to all the Patreon supporters, everybody who have been day one supporters, who have been supporting for months, years even. Shout out to you guys who co-create with me and partner with this vision. Couldn't do it without you. Thanks from the bottom of my heart. And thank you to all the new people within the last week or two who just came on. Give a shout out and call you guys out by name. Anastasia, Martha Abear, thank you for coming on. Jamie Schmitz, thank you, Jamie, for coming on. Mike Cobb, Donald Jones, and George, or Jorge. I'm not really sure how to pronounce your name, but thank you guys for believing in the work, coming on and partnering with me, helping me bring these beautiful discussions, this music, everything that I'm working on, my book, all that good stuff. You guys partnering with me, help me bring this vision to life. Thanks so much. If you want to partner, go to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography of music, which is 200 plus songs. You get access to the Thursday night School of the Mystics, which is our prayer, meditation, and behind the scenes kind of community aspect to what we're building here. The Discord, all that cool stuff. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. When it comes to the music, there's a bunch of new music there. I think I have 8 new songs that are available now. Most of them aren't available to the general public, and you can get access to those. Everybody's asking me, when am I working on new music? But there are new unreleased songs on the Patreon. You get it for as little as $5. Speaking of music, I just put out a cover song, Tourniquet, which came out on my birthday, January the 17th, with a little visual as well. So make sure y'all check that out. I'm also working on new music today. Spent most of this morning working on music, and last night finishing up 2 songs. So there will be 2 new songs added to the Patreon as well. So that's what I've been doing, working hard on music. So check it out. A bunch of really cool stuff. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. The Path of the Healer course is coming back up. We're about to launch the second wave of that. For those of you who want to get in on it, make sure you go to TruthSeekah.com, get all the info on that. It's an 8-week program training you in intuitive healing, online coaching, all that cool stuff, how to start your own blog, podcast, all the practical stuff as well. That's up. And we're also doing the retreat. We're going to do another retreat that's going to be May 1st. May 1st, Mobile, Alabama. All that will be at TruthSeekah.com. These retreats have been beautiful and getting better and better and better each time. So make sure you check all that stuff out. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's discussion. Today, I'm joined by my friend, Micah Dank. Micah, welcome to the TruthSeekah podcast, man. How are you?
What's up, man? We finally got this off, huh? It took a long time.
Yeah.
We've been planning this for everyone listening. We've been planning this for like months, and they kept we kept having issues.
It's been that way for me recently, man. I had the Alex from Skeptical podcast come on here. We had a beautiful talk, and he wanted to return the favor and have me on his show, and we did the same thing, just booking it, and something come up on his end, something come up on my end. And we tried to do it yesterday, and I got the dang time zones mixed up, and I missed the podcast, man. There's a bunch of this craziness going on. I need a freaking booking agent or somebody to help me with this stuff. But
you do. I think it's time that you got yourself an administrative assistant.
For sure. But we're here now, man, and we have a lot to talk about. I told you from the beginning, we're not talking about COVID. I know we're talking about conspiracies and stuff like that. You say, listen, COVID's off the table. Don't care about that. We got a bunch of other stuff to talk about. Your new book, we can get into that. But before we get into the subjects and all that cool stuff, just kind of give everybody an overview, who you are, your work, what you bring to the table. Let's start there.
No problem. All right. So about 9 years ago, I moved to Boston. I'm from Long Island. And I moved to Boston with an ex that I'm no longer with. But that's neither here nor there. That's not important. When we were out there, we first got out there, there was nothing much to do except, the iPad just came out. So it was just about, she'd be on the computer, we'd go out to eat. And then I'd just go down rabbit holes. And I came across, I don't know if you heard of Jordan Maxwell or Santos Bonocci. Probably not.
Love both of those guys. Jordan Maxwell wrote
the
forward to my book. Yeah.
No way.
Yep. Good guy.
Yeah. I've been trying.
I'm excited about this conversation. I love astrotheology for sure.
Yeah. All right. No doubt. Okay. So basically, I came across one of his podcasts and it blew me away. And then one of my friends sent me one from Santos and it just blew my mind. So I basically went down that rabbit hole for 6 straight months. I studied everything that I could about it. The zodiac and what each sign means and what it could mean and everything. And then what happens is I came to a point where I was able to start decoding things like in the Bible, like I'm going to show you. I know it sounds crazy, but it's not. I was able to start decoding things on my own. So I kind of branched off onto myself. And then what I basically ended up doing was, I figured these books had this information that I have had to be put in books. So I was originally going to write a nonfiction book, but what I ended up doing was I decided to use fiction because you can get away with more in fiction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can get away with everything in fiction. You can write whatever the hell you want. So that's what I basically did. And I wrote 6 books. I originally wrote 1 book and I sent it to my friends, my 2 friends, Will and John. And they were like, no, you have to write another one. I want to know about the Black Pope. I want to know about this. So I continued to write. And then basically that turned it into a trilogy. And then I just had so much more left to write. So I basically turned it into a 6-book series. The first 3 are out right now on Amazon. I have a publishing deal. I have a 6-book deal. And the 4th one's coming out in March 15th. So we're releasing these every 3 months. The first 3 are already out. And they've just been doing great. I think book 1 has like 115 reviews on Amazon and it's got like a 4.9 rating.
That's what's up.
You know what I'm saying? Like everybody loves it. Yeah. So I'm just basically trying to get the word out, and I got my my publicist. I mean, you can call me a sellout or whatever, but I'm just trying to get information out there, you know what I'm saying? To the biggest group of people that I could. So I have a publicist. And my publicist had like a random meeting with a movie producer about something that he needed her help on, or they knew each other or whatever. So she casually mentioned my book. She was like, yeah, it's a little bit of Dan Brown. It's a little bit of this. He was like, all right, send it over. So he read the script because I went on Fiverr and I had the first book converted to script.
Yeah.
Because, I'm saying, like, I have an English degree, I write. Both my father and grandfather were CBS News editors and producers. So I've got that history in me to write, but the problem is that I don't know how to write a script, so what I basically did was I paid someone on Fiverr, they wrote the script, and then she sent the script over to him. she got a message back from him on last Friday, saying basically, I'm getting married right now. I'm going on my honeymoon, but when I get back, I need to have a meeting with the three of you about this script. So it sounds good so far. You know what I'm
Nice.
saying? I'm just kind of riding that. So I'm just working on that right now.
For sure, that's what's up, man. Anything you can do to get the truth out there, man. Especially you talking about sellout. Like, we know that these movies that we're watching are full of esoteric symbolism and even stuff that you don't know. Like, if you're watching the Da Vinci Code or some of these other movies that are like geared toward esoteric mysticism stuff, we know that it's in there. But when we watch movie scripts like Transformers and all kind of stuff like that, there's like stuff out of the Book of Enoch and ancient mysticism in all of the lore. A lot of times we watch a movie, we think it's brand new, but this is like just the content's regurgitated. So that art and movies, film and music and all of that stuff is one of the best ways to get this information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as Enoch goes, I decoded that with astrology. I have a presentation that I do, so maybe we could do it another time.
Nice.
Because I want to go into, for your fans who don't really know what this is, it's basically, astrotheology is basically the mythology of the zodiac and the stars. That's what it basically is. It's the modern day mythology. Well, I wouldn't say modern day, but it's definitely the mythology of the zodiac and the stars. And you can find them in the Bible. I just have to tell you where to look.
What are some of the scriptures in the Bible that stand out to you? Of like, I know it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and you got to connect dots. But what are some of the ones that just really stand out to you about the zodiac or the importance of it and things like that?
Well, I decoded Revelation, and Revelation is loaded with it. I have some examples I'm gonna get to. All I want to do is I want to go through the 12 zodiac signs with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Let me do the 12 zodiac signs so everybody has an idea of what to look for, and then I'm going to explain stuff.
That's good. Let's get it in.
All right, cool. So there's some questions that you can ask. It's how Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed by a kiss by Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, why it's his birthday on December 25th. All that stuff is astrology. I'm going to show you where that is too. But basically, I start off with Aquarius when I explain things. I know the zodiac year starts in Aries, but I'm going to start off with Aquarius because that's kind of like January. It's the beginning of our year. So the first sign is Aquarius, which is represented by the man. Pisces is the second sign, which is the two fish. Aries is the ram. And in Aries, you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. It's also you also have the Passover, or basically what's the passing over of the sun over the equator as it goes to its height in the summer solstice. And in Christianity, it's actually changed. It's no longer known as the Passover. It's known as the resurrection of God's Son, S-U-N, not S-O-N. And it's why the Jews smear the lamb's blood on the door. It's why they blow the ram's horn at the sky. It's because it's Aries. It's the ram. So Taurus is the bull. And you have to remember, it was back in the day when they first discovered all this stuff. There was no calendars. There was no watches. There was no clocks. They had like sundials. They could look at the sun. And basically, they could look at the stars to tell them, what season it was or whatever. So it's as above, so below. Taurus is the bull. So when you see Taurus in the sky, you know that you have to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant, so that you can get everything in Virgo and Libra, which I'll get back to. So Gemini is the twins, which are Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. And that's the story of Achilles. Nothing really astro-theologically happens in that sign, though. But Cancer is the crab, and it's the sideways moving creature, and it moves sideways, back and forth. And so what happens is the sun rises a degree every single day, starting December 25th, on its axis, every single day. Then when it hits June 21st, the summer solstice, it stops for 3 days at that height. And then it drops a degree on the 25th and it goes down. And then it basically hits on December 21st. That's the day the sun dies. And then for 3 days, it stays at that height. So that's why God's son was dead for 3 days. And then on December 25th, it comes up a degree, which is the birth of Christ and countless other gods. So basically, Leo is the king. He's the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So basically, when they're talking about God's son being in his kingdom, they're talking about Leo. Virgo is the woman holding a wheat stalk. It's the virgin holding the wheat stalk. So you remember when we said before that you're going to plant in Taurus? Right. So you plant in Taurus, and basically the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo. That's what basically happens. The virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread. Then Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter. The Jews always celebrate the new year on the fall equinox. Now, Libra is the justice. It's the judger. Okay. So is there any wonder why the Jews have Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement in Libra? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So basically, Libra is also wine season. So in September, October, that's wine season. So you plant in Taurus, and then you pick the grapes and you make the wine in Libra. So you got the bread in Virgo and the wine in Sagittarius. I mean, and the wine in Libra, which is the bread and the wine, which is the symbols of Christianity. Then Scorpio is the scorpion, and he's known as the betrayer. And the reason he's known as a betrayer is because when a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. That's where the mafia gets the kiss of death from. That's where that comes from. It's also why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss, is because Judas represents Scorpio and Jesus represents the sun. So the sun is judged in Libra and betrayed in Scorpio. And finally in Sagittarius, this is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun to inflict further punishment and kill it. In the Bible, it's translated as a spear going into the side of God's son. So this is where the sun dies. And then finally, that's December 21st. That's the death of the sun. And then for 3 days, it stays at that height. It's the lowest height that the sun rises on. Okay. And then Capricorn is the goat. And then that's basically the 12 signs. So now that we basically went through the 12 signs and you have like a modicum of understanding of that, have you heard of the phrase pride comes before the fall?
Oh, yeah.
Would you be able to describe that for me?
Astrologically, or what it means spiritually in someone's life?
In someone's life.
Yeah.
How like a religious person would take it.
Yeah. So if you become prideful, if you become arrogant, you think that you're a know-it-all, you think that you have everything figured out. Usually you are tripped in your arrogance and you're knocked off of your high horse, if you will. The Apostle Paul, Nebuchadnezzar, those kind of things. And it's practical in somebody's life for sure.
Right. Okay. No doubt. So that works. That makes sense because that's how you take it literally. But do you know what a group of lions is called?
Pride. Yeah.
So pride is a group of lions is called pride. So the pride comes before the fall. So pride is Leo. Leo is in July and August. That comes before the fall.
There you go. That's beautiful. I love it.
You never heard that before?
I haven't.
But you see how it's like there's one understanding and then you dig under it and there's a little understanding. So sure. This is the kind of stuff that I talk about. For sure. You know what I mean? There's another one too, is that basically in the book of Micah, which is my namesake, which I was named after, he predicts that the Savior will come from a town in Israel. Do you remember what town it was?
Bethlehem.
All right, you know your stuff. Okay. Yeah, it's Bethlehem. But do you know what Bethlehem means?
Not right off.
Bethlehem is a combination of two Hebrew words. It's bet, B-E-T, which means house, and lechem, which means bread. So it's the house of bread. Well, I just told you that the house of bread was Virgo with the wheat stalk. Okay, so the Savior comes from a virgin. You see how that works?
And isn't Christ known as the bread of life as well?
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. Yeah.
Nice.
So you haven't heard that one either, no?
No.
Okay, so this is the kind of decodings that you could do when you understand the zodiac, and it goes deeper. It goes much deeper into it, but we're just gonna go over a couple examples.
Well, let me ask you this. I guess a practical question. Like, what is the significance of wanting to understand it? Is there hidden wisdom in it? Is it wisdom for everyday life? Like, is the spirituality or understanding how the planets travel and affect our life? If they do, some people believe that. Like, what's the significance for our listeners
They
if they should
do.
look into this?
What it basically is you have to understand is that the Bible was written. It's the most incredible book that's ever been written.
For sure.
Okay. I'm
100%.
going to give that to you. It's the most incredible. There are so many ways that you can read it.
Yep.
Okay. The one that I read it is astrologically. I believe the Bible is an astro-theological book. And what happens is when you decode these passages, they explain the heavens. For example, Jesus left at 12 and then he came back at 30. Okay. Well, basically 12 there's 12 signs in the zodiac. And as far as coming back in 30, it's interesting too, because the ancient Jews, if you listen to Jordan Maxwell, he talks about how it goes back to Saturn worship.
Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of people in the chat are already asking about Saturn. I guess that's something that sticks out to them.
Yeah. Saturn worship. That's why you wear a wedding ring. That's why you wear a wedding ring.
Mm-hmm.
That's why women wear earrings, because they were told to listen to their gods. You know what I'm saying? They were told to listen to their god, and their god was Saturn. It goes back to Saturn worship. Well, Saturn takes 30 years. So basically, they say that you're not wise until you hit 30. And the reason behind that is because Saturn takes 30 years to orbit around the sun.
And a lot of people don't know that in Jewish culture, you couldn't be a teacher until the age of 30, or it's either 30 or 33. Like, being in your 20s, being a pastor or a teacher or a scholar, they wouldn't have it. You studied and then you begin to teach either at 30 or 33, much like Christ.
Yeah.
Go
it's also why the Jews, you ever seen the box that the Jews wear here? Where they wrap? Yeah, that's exactly what they're called. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name. So basically they wear the black box. That's to Saturn. And
then you got Mecca.
Saturn. No doubt. You've got the Muslims walking around Mecca with the asteroid. I don't even believe that's a real asteroid anymore, to be honest. I think it's all gone. I don't think that's real. There was an older video that I seen early in my searching years. I would say 2006 maybe, but it was a video talking about the Mario Nintendo GameCube and how the GameCube and all of the Mario lore and legacy had about Stargate travel, and you ate the mushroom and you went to Star Road and all of that kind of stuff, and it was all linked in to the GameCube and Saturn worship as well. It was really interesting to see how that was tied in as well. Absolutely. But basically the reason it's 30 years, the reason you can't teach until 30, the reason that you know what I'm saying, is because that's when Saturn comes back to the point of your birth. You know what I'm saying? Saturn has to make a complete revolution. It always goes back to Saturn worship. But even if you look at the names of Jesus, it's all astrology. You have Capricorn, the goat, right? He's known as the scapegoat of Israel.
Yeah.
You have the man sign Aquarius. He's known as the son of man. Pisces is the two fish. He's known as the fisherman of men. It's also why he fed the masses with two fish. Remember that?
Yep.
It's a metaphor. You have Aries, the ram. He's the Lamb of God. You have Leo, the lion. He's the Lion of Judah. The lady holding the stalk of wheat. He's born of a virgin, and as you mentioned, he's the bread of life. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Libra, the scales of justice. He's known as the just one. That's why he's worshipped on a Sunday, the Sunday. Why the Jews worship on the day of rest is the Saturn, or the Saturday. He's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just so many astrological examples in there.
It's beautiful to be able to see what they'll call the Messiah in everything. I love to hear that, and love to go through the Old Testament too and see the Messiah in every book of the Old Testament. Have you looked into that as well? How like every book is a representation of the Messiah. Like you can look at like let's just say in Genesis where Adam goes to sleep, and Adam represents the first Christ, right? And who brought the fall or whatever. Adam goes to sleep and his rib is taken out and he's given a wife. And then when we get to Christianity, or we get to the New Testament, how we are grafted into the body of Christ, and we are the bride of Christ as well. And so these parallels between every book of the Old Testament and the life of Christ even. So it's you're talking about all of these ways to interpret it, and most people just take it at face value, literal, of Adam and his lineage and Jesus, and they take it very literal. But I think the Jews, not there's a lot of different discussion on this, but I think the agreed upon term to study the scriptures was 4 major ways to break the scriptures down. Some people say 7, some people say 99 ways to break the scriptures down, but you have the literal, that's one way to read it. You have the esoteric, you have the allegorical, which is, I think, my favorite, you know what I'm saying, the allegories and how they relate to us in our lives. And then there was the spiritual meanings as well. So I think that there were 4 that the ancient Jewish mystics would read, and they would contemplate what these scriptures meant at different parts of their life even. So beautiful just to tear this book apart. Like, I'm with you. This is the most beautiful book on the planet. And people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge because they can't read it. They can't see the signs.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I think I personally, when I started doing what I do, I was really angry at religion, and I was kind of doing it as like can I cuss on here?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. I kind of just did it as like a fuck you. You
Yeah.
know, basically, you know, I went out there and I was like,
which is how a lot of people and why they do it, right? I feel like you can feel that though. Like, you can feel somebody's vibe if they're like trying to take a dig at Christianity or take a dig at the church, and your savior's fake. He was the sun, and it was sun allegory. It was like, okay, but where's the beauty in that? There is a deeper meaning, but go ahead.
Right. So what I did was that, and then I sat there and I got on. You ever heard of Coast to Coast AM or Richard Syrett? You ever heard of Richard Syrett?
No.
Richard Syrett, he's the weekend host, and he put me on his podcast, his original podcast. But he said, "Listen, I'm a Christian. I'm not going to do anything that denies Christianity." Yeah. So I said, all right, I can work on that. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of evolved my thinking. You know, I'm not trying to convince you not to be a Christian or not to be a Jew or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to show you is that there's more than just reading a book literally. You know, there's more to it. I'll give you an example. We'll go into some Old Testament and we'll go into some New Testament examples of astro-theology in the Bible. So, and you're going to be able to pick this out because I'm going to read you this one. It's going to be so obvious to you. So Deuteronomy 32, he says he gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine from the juice of red grapes, but Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So right off the bat, how many signs did you just hear in that?
Yeah, that's a bunch. In one passage.
Right?
Yeah.
In one passage, they're right there. You know, the other thing you got to realize too is he gave them honey from the cliffs. In the sign Cancer, there's a group of stars. It's an asterism. It's called the Beehive Cluster. Okay, so that's where you get the honey. And as far as the butter and the milk, well, that comes from the Milky Way galaxy, right? Which center of it passes through Sagittarius. So from Cancer to Sagittarius, you have the land of milk and honey.
Yep.
All right. And we can go into the New Testament too. Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. All right. So the first was like a lion.
The 4 fixed signs.
Yeah, you knew that, right?
Heck yeah.
Except the flying eagle.
The 4 living creatures. That's what they're called in the scriptures, but they are it is the zodiac, the Mazzaroth.
Right. And the flying eagle, actually, for people who don't know, the flying eagle is the evolved form in astrology for the scorpion. In case people didn't know that. So the scorpion, basically, it evolves metaphysically into the flying eagle, and then that evolves again into the phoenix. Okay? So, and I can give you, you've heard of the woman and the dragon in Revelation?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to paraphrase this. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. Okay? A great sign appeared in heaven, the woman clothed with the sun. Well, that's the sun in Virgo during the day. And if the sun is in Virgo, then the moon is directly under her feet. Makes sense? Okay. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. You have an enormous red dragon. That's the constellation Draco the dragon. And the interesting thing too is that if you look at Draco's tail, it goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 1/3 of the stars out of the sky, and it was swept to earth. It's a metaphor, so you can understand. This breaks down the constellations, and this breaks down the zodiac signs 100%. You know what I'm saying? Like this information really, it's hidden in the Bible very well. It was done intentionally, and it was done beautifully. Like, it's incredibly hard to encode something while you're writing on a surface level something else.
Yeah. I mean, I love all the movies that do that. You're watching a movie within a movie, and there's so many that come out where you feel like you're watching one movie, and then at the end, one thing happens and you're watching a totally different movie. You have to go back and like recode everything that you just watched. The same way when you're reading the scriptures, most people start off at the base literal, level until they watch a Santos Bonacci video, until they have an awakening. Jordan Maxwell, whoever facilitated that, and they read a scripture that just unfolds to them because it works that way too. And now you have to decode everything that you just read, and you thought it was talking about this, but now it's talking about that. And I believe that they're all true, like again at that literal level or the metaphysical level, or what it means to you right now, right? So you have all of those different levels to interpret the scriptures, and they're all beautiful, and all of them matter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree 100%. The more I look at it, though, to realize I've decoded. I don't know if you ever heard of the Book of Raziel, but I've done that. I've done the Book of Enoch. I've done the Book of Revelation. I've done the Book of Matthew. I've with astrology, and once you know what you're looking for, yeah, go on.
No, I have a couple questions for you, just some things that I've pondered and haven't really. I know they're going to be a super deep study, but understanding how the 12 disciples fit into the 12 houses of the zodiac as well, like as far as their I know we can look at the number 12, and then but their characteristics, their personalities, are those affected by the 12? Do they correlate? Can you look at each disciple and say, okay, this is who he is? Christ is the son, you know what I'm saying? And they all are around us. Some would say Christ was the son, and others would say that he was Leo for the Lion of Judah, if you will. But I'm sure there was
but Leo's ruling planet is the sun.
And, well, I'm
so
sure.
For example,
one of the disciples were from Leo as well. I'm sure if we looked it up, because you can look up, the lineage in those scriptures as well.
Well, you've seen Da Vinci's Last Supper, right? That's just basically astrology. The way they're broken down into 4 sections of 3, it's the 4 seasons, with Jesus the Son in the middle. I mean, the woman right to his left, that's Virgo. You have Libra. I can't do it with my arms right now, but Libra, he has his arms out like this. Mm-hmm. You have I think it's Taurus pointing to Virgo into her throat to show she doesn't have an Adam's apple. It's crazy. There's Leonardo da Vinci knew what he was doing. 100%.
Now, are you familiar with the work of Danny Wilton, showing the zodiac within the brain and all of that stuff within some of the ancient paintings and stuff like that?
I do not know.
Really? Okay, yeah, some beautiful work. At least he started out with some beautiful work. He branched off into a lot of weird stuff, but Danny Wilton's early work about Orion in the brain, and showing like some of the work of Michelangelo, I think it was, who did the paintings or whatever. It's real beautiful. But sticking with the New Testament, have you looked into Judas and being replaced? Because isn't there like a 13th planet, and I want to say it's Orpheus or something weird like that. This
Ophicus
that was considered
Ophicus,
a planet at, you know what I'm saying, one point, and then it was replaced. And we see how Judas was the 12th and he was replaced as well. Have you looked into any of that correlation?
So I don't see that happening. First of all, I don't recognize Ophicus as the 13th sign. And I'll tell you why. It's because when you have the zodiac wheel, okay, as I've decoded the Bible with astrotheology, you have to understand is that the solstices and the equinox make a perfect cross, okay, through the zodiac wheel. Okay, and so 21st, 21st. You throw a 13th sign in there, and by the way, that's the cross of God's Son that He lives.
Yeah, you actually see that cross on a lot of churches too, and people have no idea what it means. It's the solar cross. It's usually in a circle, like a circle with a cross in it on your churches.
Well, I mean, look at any picture online. You Google pictures of Jesus. The Son is always behind him. It's telling you. It's telling you He's the Son. You know, it's always with the two fingers up too. We can get into that later though. But no, as far as the 13th sign, I don't recognize Ophicus. I think that was put in there as a psyop to keep people further away from being able to decode this. I think once you do that and you start messing with the dates, none of the astrology works. None of it does. So it was nonsense. Like, yes, the snake bearer was there, but I don't recognize it personally. And I don't think it took. It didn't take. Yeah. People were not too thrilled with it. People did not, you know what I'm saying? I don't think people like that very much.
Now, what about, people asking about Saturn again? You touched on that a little bit. Now, what about Saturn's representation of Satan or the deceiver? Is that accurate, or is that giving Saturn a bad rap that they were Satan worshippers or Satan representatives?
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that say Saturn is Satan.
It's just because it messes things up, right? When Saturn is known to do that, right?
Right.
Satan.
But the excuse me. A lot of people equate Saturn to Satan. I don't tend to do that. I think Satan literally just means adversary.
Yeah.
You know, Satan literally just means adversary.
And it's probably not even a being, most likely, you know.
No, it's not. Well, Lucifer is the light bringer, you know. How are you going to have somebody evil in your, called the light bringer?
Yeah.
You know, in Genesis 1:3, God says, "Let there be light." How are you going to have light without the light bringer? You know, so Lucifer is immediately mentioned in the Bible right away, even though he's not mentioned by name.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, in any good story, you gotta have an antagonist and protagonist and all of these people. Then you gotta have the hero, which we know ties into Jesus' story as the hero's journey is the story that we all go through, and all of our great movies that we're talking about, they all go through this hero's journey, and they're all very similar. So you gotta have these ingredients it's the yin and yang as well. You can't have the light without the darkness. There has to be some type of gradient for you to be able to see how beautiful and marvelous the light is. You have to have a character or an essence or something that plays the darkness. And whether people will call that the devil or Satan or whatever, people have given them names. But, I think the Bible's pretty clear that even Peter played a Satan. He played an adversary of Christ. And so it is a role that we play.
You're talking about when he denied him 3 times?
Yeah. Well, no, whenever he was telling him he didn't have to go to the cross and he was trying to figure out other ways to keep Christ here or whatever. He's like, "No, get behind me, Satan." He called him Satan. But was that Satan speaking through him? No, he was an adversary to God's will, at that time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we can all play that role as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of those roles. I mean, that's the allegory behind it. We play all those roles.
Yeah.
We play the Pharisee. Yeah. I've played the prostitute, the harlot, you know what I'm saying? The tax collector. Like we play all those roles throughout our life, I believe.
Mm-hmm. You got a nice way of looking at this thing, man.
Yeah, it's about me. That book is about me, man. And I think Jesus said the same thing though, like, because when Jesus had his awakening or whatever, and he's teaching in the synagogues, they're literally doing a Bible study, and Jesus he reads the scripture to him, and he's like, "Y'all know this is talking about me, right?" And so people would stop there, but no, it's talking about it's talking about him, but it's talking about us too. Like this story, this journey that we all take throughout the scriptures, we all, it's all symbolic, and even breaking down the names for me in the Old Testament, of how to overcome your own obstacles, and you're facing your own giants, your Goliaths that come up, and you know what I'm saying, shortcomings and setbacks and obstacles. All of that stuff is detailed throughout the scriptures. And you know, read in the New Testament, it talks about how the scripture's alive. It's sharper than any two-edged sword, able to divide between both bone and marrow, or in spirit. Like, it knows you, like you're reading a book about you. And you can't get that if you're just reading a history book and you think it's about someone who lived 2,000 years ago or 6,000 years ago. You're going to miss that. You're going to think it was about them, and you're not going to find out the allegory and the beauty of how to overcome your own giants, or your own, you know what I'm saying, ego, and all of that stuff that we all have to deal with.
Absolutely.
That's why it's a beautiful
Love
book.
it.
Just to say, oh, it's just this. Like, okay, well, to you, if that's what you think it is, then that's what it becomes to you. But for someone who reads it, and you're trying to, you know, find out about yourself and your connection with God and the cosmos and all of that, you're in for a treat, because it's all in there.
I hear you, man. So I could do another passage, you know, to show you. This one's a little longer. This one goes back to the Old Testament too. This is a little longer, but it's all astrology. I'm going to show you. So, you familiar with the story of Job?
Yeah.
You want to just do me a favor and tell your fans what it's about, basically?
Okay, so the story of Job was, you have different opinions. Some people say that he doubted God or questioned God, and then so God took his hand off of Job and told Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job?" And so Satan got to pretty much have his way with Job and take everything from him. And he goes through these years of just utter darkness and turmoil, and all of his friends and people abandoning him and saying, "You brought this upon yourself." In the end, he gets everything restored, even better wife, better family, better everything in the end. So it's this story of utter darkness and turmoil,
Right?
but everything being restored in the end.
So what I'm going to read you is God's response to Job. Okay. All right, let's do this. Job 38:32. He starts, God says, "Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth?" That's his first line. The Mazzaroth literally means the zodiac.
Yeah.
You know that. Everybody needs to know that now. The Mazzaroth is the zodiac. Over time, it becomes Mazalot. And then over time, that becomes Mazel Tov, which is good fortune from the stars in Judaism.
See, I didn't know that.
Okay. Yeah.
The
Mazel
Mazel Tov,
Tov
deep.
comes from Mazzaroth. Yeah. Then basically you have the Lord's challenge to Job. He says, and these two are obvious. He says, "Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt?" Right? So he's wide open talking about that. Then he says, "Can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons, or lead out the bear with its cubs?" Well, the constellations are the zodiac above, and the bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. Then he says, "Who can tip over the water jars of the heavens?" That's Aquarius. "Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions?" That's Leo. "Who provides food for the raven?" That's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders Virgo. "Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn?" Mariga, M-R-I-G-A, means deer and is located in Orion. "Who let the wild donkey go free?" That's Acellus Borealis, which means donkey and is located in Cancer. "Will the wild ox consent to serve you?" That's Taurus. "The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully." That's Lambda Achille, or Al Thaliman, which means two ostriches in Arabic. "Do you give the horse its strength? It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy from the sword. The quiver rattles against its side, along with the flashing spear and lance." That's Sagittarius with the bow and the arrow. Do you remember earlier when I told you that spear?
Yep.
It turns into a spear. There's where it explains that it's a spear. There's two important murders in the Bible. I'm going to finish this in a sec, but there's two important murders in the Bible, or the two most important. The first is the first, which is Cain and Abel. Cain in Hebrew literally means spear. That's what it translates to. That's the etymology of Cain. And then Christ, the murder of Christ, he has a spear put into him at the end. Right? So the spear takes a big point of that, and they just mentioned that too. So That was Sagittarius with the bow and the arrow. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? That's Aquila, which is the Latin name for eagle and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. Finally, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? That's Pisces. So you see how all that is? You see how that whole thing is just astrology?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I love this translation from the NIV here. There's a word that you use that I think it makes it a little bit more practical for us Westerners, but the NIV there says, can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons or lead out the bear with its cubs? And then 33 says, do you know the laws of the heavens? So it's talking about the law of the heaven. And in the KJV, it uses the word ordinances or whatever, but the laws of the heavens. Do you want to learn the laws of the heavens?
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
Where did you find that again?
It's the NIV translation of the same verse, the Job 38, 30, 31. NIV. It just used laws instead of ordinances.
That's amazing. I love it.
Now, what about this? So here's the thing, because you're talking about, you know, as above, so below, but then we know as within, so without, on earth as it is in heaven, right? We know all of this. Like, have you done any study? I think Santos does some of this, but how it, you know, relates to us in our anatomy. Do you know anything about
Jesus. I don't. I just know that Aries is the head and Pisces is the feet.
Yeah.
You know, I just know that
there's a
goes
whole bunch.
that.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch, man, because we're talking about how, you know, heaven is out there, right? Heaven is in outer space, 100%. But heaven is within as well. The kingdom of heaven is within you. So it is out there, but it is within as well.
Well, you understand the kingdom of heaven is within you. That comes from the Egyptian books. Mm-hmm. That doesn't actually come from the Bible. That was borrowed from the Egyptian texts.
Yeah, they knew something. But when you get to Revelation, there's a lot of this too, talking about like the 24 elders and, you know, just the way that, you know, your heart is God's throne and the 24 elders that are around the throne of God, you know, paying homage to the king that sits upon the throne. And the scripture talks about how God sits on the throne of your heart, that kind of thing. There's so much.
Well, you ever see pictures of Jesus online? His heart's always out and it's always covered with the thorns. You ever see that? Mm-hmm. It's always out of his body.
The heart that's on fire.
It's always out of his body. Yeah. The crown of thorns, incidentally, represents the solar rays, the flares from the sun.
Yep.
Yeah. But the sun, I mean, it's always Jesus with the two fingers straight up in the air, the sun behind him, the heart out, and the crown of thorns around him. Now, why would they do that?
Well, that's a mudra he's holding up. I think that's the fire mudra that he's holding as well. And then his heart is on fire. And
this is actually an ancient Kemetic peace symbol. It's an ancient Egyptian peace symbol.
Okay.
This is a British war sign.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the piece here. And I think it's bent a little bit. Yeah, it's and like I said, and also in Hinduism, it's the fire mudra. You hold that when you do the breath of fire, and then this heart is on fire.
This is the Apana mudra.
Jesus also teaches us to live from the heart as well. You know, living from the heart up. Anyway, there's so many layers to it. You know what I'm saying? And it's beauty. If you can read between the lines, literally, you can see it. It's all in there. I like how Santos says it, and people's like, you know what? The Bible forbids astrology, and Santos says the Bible would never forbid astrology because the Bible is pure astrology. It
is pure astrology. I'm gonna read this to you from the Catholic Church, though. You ready? You familiar with the Catholic Church catechisms?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read you Catechism 2116. Nice. This is from the Catholic Church. All forms of divination are to be rejected, recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future, consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums all conceal a desire for power over time, history, and in the last analysis, other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden power. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. So the Catholic Church is telling you right there not to mess with astrology.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I'm
that's
saying?
the thing. The thing is, like, people don't understand because I think the majority of Christendom understands that there are verses that forbid astrology, or not really forbid, but God rebukes the astrologers and says, "Listen, you're not
Right.
going to be able to read anymore." And they say, "See, God tells us not to look into that. That He's blinded the astrologers. They're they can't read the signs anymore." But if you keep reading, God rebuked everyone, the worshipers, like everyone who was playing their music and keeping holy days and holidays, and He said, "Listen, all of these days are an abomination. Your music, He said, I will not even hear your prayers, but yet you still pray." You know what I'm saying? So just because God rebuked someone in the Old Testament because their hearts weren't in it or they were using it for the wrong means, doesn't mean that it's done away with or wasn't created for a beautiful purpose. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do all that. And even the, you know what I'm saying, the divination that you just quoted there from the Catholic Church, I've got all the studies on how divination is something that's beautiful, and God created it for us to, you know what I'm saying, communicate with Him through, the casting of lots. And He says He speaks through the casting of lots, and whatever that lot says, He says, you take it as gospel as I said it. You won't hear that in any churches being taught, that we could still use divination to, get signs and messages from the Creator.
Now, the interesting thing too is this. Let me throw this idea at you. So during the age of Taurus, which was the age of the bull, the Egyptians were prevalent. I mean, you can see hieroglyphs of bulls with the horns and the sun between the horns. I mean, they make it painfully obvious that they were worshiping the age of Taurus.
Well, I mean, and then you have Moses as well. The early pictures of Moses that we have, Moses has horns.
Right. And on top of that, you're talking Moses goes on to get the 10 Commandments, right? He comes down, he sees them worshiping a golden calf. That's the bull in Taurus. And he's mad at them because they're in the age of Aries now, because the Jews are the people of Aries, with the ram's horn and everything. So he smashes the tablets and he's pissed at them. It's not a giant golden calf. It's not a giant golden calf. The gold is the sun and the calf is Taurus. But then the Jews become the people of Aries, right? And then, we have Moses with the tablets and everything. And then you go to the age of Pisces, and that's where Christianity starts. And you're talking about Jesus with the 2 fish, the fishermen of men, and now we're in the age of Aquarius, which is going to be an enlightening time for all of us. But is there any wonder why everybody's talking about having to have a one world religion right now? It's because they have to. It's a new sign. That's what you do. It's as above, so below. They're pushing a new world religion. And I think that new world religion is going to be merging with machines, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's going to keep evolving. And that's the interesting thing about the Bible is that, like, I'm more of a, I believe that a lot of that stuff already happened. And that's what I was going to ask you about, your take about Revelation and stuff. As far as if we try to interpret it on like a literal scale, I'm a preterist. Like, I believe that, 70 AD and all of that stuff, Jesus said the end was coming and the Antichrist is out there right now. All of this kind of stuff, like, it happened to that generation that was standing there. If we interpret it from a, literal standpoint.
Well, 2 things happened in 70 AD. You have to remember, it was the fall of the Jewish temple.
Yeah.
It was sacked by the Romans, and the book of Mark came out. The book of Mark is the oldest gospel. It came out in 70 AD.
Yep.
But they put astrology in modern day things. You remember a movie? I'm scared to ask how old you are because I'm 37. But
I just turned 37 a week ago.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So you remember that movie Face Off?
Yeah.
With anybody who's listening to, Face Off was a movie with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. Well, do you remember Nicolas Cage and his brother, what their names are?
I don't.
Castor and Pollux Troy, Gemini. And the twins, and their enemy was John Travolta. His name was Sean Archer. Well, the Archer is the bow and the arrow in Sagittarius. Gemini and Sagittarius happen to be opposing signs also. So you see how they sneak that in there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all throughout there, man. And I wanted to ask you, since we're talking about this, we're bringing it up in the Bible and how it relates to us and how it's still relevant. How do you make it relevant within the book? Like, how do you weave this stuff within the stories? If you can kind of give us an overview of the
in my books.
Yeah.
So my books are basically the astrotheology, these kind of biblical codes that come down, and just this history information that I've been telling you so far. It's just a sliver of what I talk about in the books. The books are thrillers. Okay. And what happens is throughout the books, it's very Dan Brownish. So the anagrams and the cryptograms, they're all Bible related as far as astrology goes. See, in my world, in my book's world, the characters find out slowly that the world is being ruled by people who are ruled by astrology. And I give examples of that throughout everything. For example, you know why the NBA team, the Phoenix, are the Suns? Because the Phoenix is the same story as Jesus. You know, it's born, and then it lives, and then it dies, and then it rises from its ashes. That's why the Phoenix are the Suns. Now, there's a women's team in Phoenix, too. They're called the Mercury. Well, they're called the Phoenix Mercury because Mercury is the ruling planet of Virgo, the woman sign. You know what I'm saying? So they sneak this in all over the time.
Now, what about what I've always found interesting when I was getting in all this was like all of the car companies,
all the symbols.
Saturn. There's like so many of them. They're either to do with astrology or the zodiac or stars. You know, there's so many of them.
Right. I mean, do you remember when 9/11 happened?
Mm-hmm.
All right. There was one dog that died, and they made it a point to tell you everywhere, even though it wasn't really news. Do you remember the dog's name?
I don't.
It was Sirius.
Yep.
They made it a point to tell you. Whether they made that up or not, I don't know. But they made it a point to tell you over and over again. You know, it's a revelation of the method. That's what it basically is.
Mm-hmm. It's all in there. There's something about it, man. When we look at, you know, the elite and Illuminati and secret orders and stuff like that, they use this symbolism. Do you think that we draw power from these sacred geometry and triangles and all of this kind of stuff? Or are they just using it for those who are in the know can recognize who's in the know with them? Or do they really have like these...
It's a combination. It's a combination of both.
You think they still have alliances with these foreign like star gods and stuff as well?
Oh, it goes all the way back to the black nobility in the Egyptian times. Absolutely. Absolutely. What did they say? They said like 30 presidents or something can trace their lineage back to like Charlemagne or was it Cleopatra or Nefertiti? You know,
well, I think it's what is the 13 bloodlines or whatever, that they're all related. And then there was a girl, like a middle school girl, who did a project who showed you how all the presidents were related, and like all of the big movie stars and stuff, they're all related, and they give each other places in power and seats in power. And people think that we get to vote these people in and stuff. Like when you go back, like these are very powerful families who have been running the planet since the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of them is the Borgia family. You go back to the Borgias and Pope Alexander VI. His son Caesar Borgia is the face of the picture of White Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Borgia. Christ was not Caesar Borgia. Yeah. He's White Christ. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
They used him to pose.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, that's why a lot of people get mad when we use that picture, or even showing a white Jesus. That's his. You know what I'm saying? Caesar Borgia, he was a rapist. You know, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know. You got a rapist hanging on your wall. Yeah, I've been through all that, man, for sure. Any images and stuff, but it's beautiful, man, just to come back full circle. You know what I'm saying, and know that it's deeper. And I think that going back to what we started with, the pride before the fall, when we think that we got it all figured out and we know it all, boom, we're like faced with something that shows us that you know what I'm saying, humbles us, man. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, you know, for any seeker to look up at the stars should humble the hell out of you. You know what I'm saying? And see how far, you know, away you are and how big the cosmos is. You know what I'm saying? So,
I mean, you want to go back.
The game is humility, you know?
You want to go back. Have you heard of the Antikythera mechanism?
Not by that name. I haven't.
It's like an ancient computer that was used to track the stars that we found. I think it was in the Aegean Sea in a Greek warship.
Okay.
We found it.
Yeah, it's recent, right?
Yeah, so that's 2,000 years. You want to go back to Göbekli Tepe, which is 12,000 years ago. That was an astronomy and astrology viewing point. They had a section for that. They figured it out. You want to go back 40,000 years to the Lascaux Caves. There's all these carvings of lions and horses and rams and bulls in the cave. And then what happens is they brought in an astronomer, and what they did was they had a computer and they rewound the sky. First, they carbon dated the wall, and they figured out that it was about 40,000 years old, right? And then what they did was they rewound the clocks on this computer program, and they put up, they printed out what they had, and they put it up against the wall, and boom, Pisces is where Pisces is. The bull was where the bull was. They knew this. They knew 40,000 years ago. 40,000 years ago, these people knew the signs. You know, it's the oldest science. And the truth of the matter is if we ever have a cataclysmic event, where do you think finding religion, finding, any of this would be on the list? It would be so far down the list. We would need to know how to survive for predators. We would need to know that science. We'd go right back to looking at the stars.
Yep.
It's the oldest science, and it is for the reason.
Yep. 100%. It's interesting to note too, who was the first people that showed up at the birth of Christ? They were
astronomers, right? Or astrologers. Were they astrologers?
Astronomers? Yeah, same thing. Yeah. The Magi, the magicians,
right?
Even, stargazers. It's interesting to note too, whenever you look up the word prophet, the prophet translates to seer. Samuel was a seer. Seer is a stargazer. Mm-hmm. Seer is a visionary stargazer. That's what these people did. They gazed at the stars, man. And that's how they got their lore. That's how they got their writings, and it's beautiful. We do what I'm saying, a lot of stargazing as well, and stuff like that. So I love it, man, and I love how the scriptures speak highly of all of this as well, and it doesn't denounce it as we were told in Sunday school.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Yeah, so it's been great. It's just there's just so much information out there. And so what I basically did was I turned it into a 6-book series where basically you're being made aware of all these conspiracies that are happening, and they have to navigate their world, and they basically save the world like a bunch of times. But all the codes are in astrology, and most of their conversations talk about the astrology, the astronomy, the history behind it. And like everybody likes to talk about the Council of Nicaea, but it goes back like even further than that. It's like the Council of Jamnia and even further back than that.
Now, do you believe that astrology affects the way that we feel and the way our bodies work with the moon and tides and menstrual cycles and emotional?
The moon for sure.
All that?
The moon for sure. I think that's almost mainstream science, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Women have the same cycle as the moon. The moon controls the tides. We're 70% water or whatever the hell we are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine who he was had to go see a psychiatrist and stuff, and really to save money and to really take control of his own mind, his own body, he just studied his own astrology, so he knows how to plan his day, how to plan his week, when he's going, when he should step into a new relationship, when he should start a new business deal, a new venture, and all of that stuff. And he believes in it, and it helps him, and if you talk to Jordan long enough, Jordan really believes in it too, and he's got people he'll refer you to, some people that he believes are experts in the field of astrology who can tell you about yourself.
Right. I would love to talk to Jordan. I've never been able to.
You haven't talked to him. You got it. Oh man, he's easy to hit up. Have you talked to Santos?
I have. Santos I have. Early on when I came up with the book of Matthew and I decoded it, he really supported me and this and that and the other thing.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, I get my chart read every time something big happens in my life. I get my chart read. There's a girl she's a fan of mine. Her name is Lolita. She's actually a stripper. And I'm not even lying. I know
stripper
it sounds
stargazer.
I'm not.
Shout out to Lolita.
I'm not lying, but she's Lolita from Lexington, Kentucky, and she's a big fan of mine, and every single time something happens in my life, she reads my chart, and she's by far the smartest one that I've ever come across with this. You know what I'm saying? So I get my chart read all the time.
For sure. Yeah, well, Jordan's pretty easy to reach out to. Again, I got him to write my forward, and he's been on the podcast probably 4 times already. But I say he's been easy to get a hold to because of his health and everything. He's not doing too much these days. But I'm sure if you send him an email, he'll probably respond to you.
I haven't heard back yet.
Really? Has it been recent?
Maybe, no.
Oh, okay. Try him again.
This is
I mean, I haven't heard from him in a while myself. He's had health problems, but yeah, he's definitely a godfather in this for you know what I'm saying, a lot of us. And
he's the OG.
Yeah, and had people steal his work, and you know what I'm saying, and put their name on it, and quite literally, you know what I'm saying, happened to him. His whole website, his identity, all that stuff. But we owe that man a lot, for sure. I know I do. You know,
yeah.
Shoot, I was thinking about quitting right after I started this stuff, and just had a long. Jordan Maxwell would talk to us for hours on the phone, dude. I'd watch hours of his interviews, and then I'd get on the telephone with him, and he'd just talk to me. And I called my friends on three-way. It's like 5 of us listening to, you know, asking Jordan Maxwell questions for hours on end. And he was like, he's like, listen, you gotta, you're a truth seeker. Like, you gotta continue to seek the truth. And, I was going through a hard time because I was a Christian minister myself. I was traveling to churches and speaking and all that kind of stuff. And so when I started talking about this stuff and putting it in my music and all that, like, it wasn't like, it was really hard to make that transition. I was kind of going back and forth, and it was really a talk with Jordan that was like, you know what, man, if you feel drawn to it, there's a reason. So follow your heart. It's God leading you into this stuff. And so, for sure.
Yeah, maybe you could facilitate a meeting.
Yeah, I could try. I'm trying it with other people now, but he's not even responding to my stuff right now. Like I said, after his heart attack and stroke, he's kind of few and far between. So
he's pushing 90 now, no?
Yeah, he's up there for sure. Yeah, I will say, current Jordan Maxwell is not older Jordan Maxwell. He's a different character. He's given up. He's F you kind of the guy, in his old age. But if you try, you can get some gold out of him, I guess. Some gems, because he's got them. He's got all those stories, and so yeah, I'll try to hit him up for you.
All right, man. I appreciate that.
Man, let people know where they can go to check out your books and check out your work and all that stuff. We got, I guess, some people here in the chat who are saying they just seen you on some other podcasts and stuff as well, and they're fans of your work.
Where'd they say they see me?
What is it? Was it Leak Project? Maybe.
I was just on that last night. Yeah.
Yeah. So let people know where they can go check out your work, man.
So you go to Amazon.com and you look up Micah Dank, or look up Into the Rabbit Hole. I got 3 books out so far. You can find me on Twitter or Facebook, Micah Dank. Reach out to me. If you're looking to get digital copies of the books and you don't want to give Bezos half the money, you want it to come directly to me, reach out to me. You know what I'm saying? Reach out to me, and we'll work something out, and I can email you the copies. And then the good thing is they're unlocked, unlike Kindle. These books are unlocked, so you can share them with your friends. I'm trying to go viral. So that's basically it. Find me there, and go on Amazon, check them out. That's for sure.
That's what's up. Well, Micah, I appreciate this conversation, bro, and I'm glad we was able to finally connect, and thanks for coming on, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again, bro. Thanks so much for hanging out.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Many blessings. We'll do it again.
Yep.
All right, peace. Micah Dank, ladies and gentlemen. Astrotheology. For a lot of people, they get scared by this conversation. Anything outside of the norm of what they've been told. And so a lot of people feel like if astrotheology is real, then their literal interpretation of the scriptures isn't. Can they all be real at the same time? Can they all be true? Can all of these layers exist cohesively at the same time? I believe so. The scripture says, surely the heavens declare the glory of God, that this message of the Christ and the Messiah, the Mashiach, was written in the stars before the sands of time. And again, when we look at how the stargazers, the Magi, were the first ones to show up at the birth of Christ, it wasn't the pastors, it wasn't the preachers, teachers, or the prophets. It was who many of you would call New Agers. the New Agers, the astrologers, who were the first ones to show up at the birth of the Messiah. Why? Because they followed the stars. They followed the stars and knew about the prophecy of the Messiah. A lot of people would read that and think that it's talking about UFOs, that they were following a UFO to the birth of Christ. But you have to understand that the Bible is astrology, and it's full of it. The Mazzaroth, the Mazzalat, talks about Orion, the Pleiades, the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. Changes everything. And that should be a good place to start, just looking into how all of that stuff's mentioned, and the stars singing, and the morning stars singing out, and all of this stuff. When we mentioned Lucifer, going back to the scriptures about Lucifer, which is only mentioned one time in the Bible, and when it's using it as a title. It's not talking about a being by the name of Lucifer. It's mentioning it as a analogy for the planet Venus. We didn't even really talk about that, but the planet Venus, so which shines in the morning sky in all of its glory until the sun rises, and Venus is cast out of the morning sky, and so hence this fall from grace, or being cast down off of your high and lofty place, which was what the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, had the children of Israel in bondage, and the prophet said, "Let my people go," and he wouldn't do it. Say, "If you don't, you're going to face judgment. Like, I'm not going to do anything. God's going to knock you off your throne." And that's exactly what happened. So the analogy of, is this not the man that did weaken the nations, that did cause the nations to tremble? It was talking about a man. It was not talking about a being by the name of Lucifer or whatever. So I go into that in my book. If you guys haven't checked that out, get it. Make sure you check it out. The Bible is full of astrology. The Bible is pure astrology. I believe it. But it doesn't negate the rest of it. It doesn't negate if you want to read it literally. I think that's how it makes more sense to people. For many people, that's how it becomes more real. You read it like it's like these are real people that existed. Did they? I don't know. I wasn't there. So that's why you have to tap in through faith. You don't know either, but you have faith that these people existed. And as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter if they existed or not. What matters is if you read the stories and you read the allegory and you do what it says do. You love like Christ. You know what I'm saying? You have a vision like Enoch. You dance in the spirit, unashamed like King David. Like all of these things that you have to do what the scripture says do. There's an essence to it. There's a lot to learn. So just thinking that you're reading it literally, you're missing so much. We read like Aesop's fables and all of these stories that have, the ugly duckling and all of these stuff. You know what I'm saying? Mother Goose, really deep allegories and signs and metaphors that are talking about you. When you're reading the scriptures, man, you're not reading it. It's reading you. If you read it with an open heart and you ask God to speak to you through it, I guarantee you that he will. I guarantee that book will transform and come to life and talk to you. You're not reading about these people. You're reading about you. You're reading about your enemies. You're reading about your goals. You're reading about your shortcomings and your doubts and your fears. Your fear to step out into your destiny, that God is calling you to do great things, but you're afraid of what people would say. All of this stuff, it's applicable to where you are in your life, no matter where you are. Get into it. The most amazing book ever written. It's alive. With that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Make sure you check out my Patreon for at the $5 level, you get access to my music. And there's a bunch of new music coming out. I'm working on 2 songs right now. As soon as I turn this off, I'm going to get back on the music. And then I got I got 2 more interviews today. We're going live tonight. I'm going to be interviewed on Supernatural podcast with Daniel Adams, my good friend Dan, on his ministry. He's going to be featuring me here in a little while. Make sure you follow me on Facebook and all that stuff, and I'll share that out if you guys want to hang out for that. But I am knee deep in some new music that is pretty exciting. So if you want to check it out, join my Patreon. You get a lot of awesome stuff. With that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. Love you guys. I'm reading your comments. I see it. Love y'all. Peace, guys. See you later.
Your way so much higher than mine, so much higher.
episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.